is in response to a lot of the comments from yesterday and from the last couple of years about how we're going to manage massive fleets of AVs. This is from another section from the book that we've just published now, and here's what it's in response to. The UITP a couple of years ago said that what it looks like autonomous vehicles are going to be, they're going to come in two major flavors. The first major flavor is people will buy them, and that's on the left, privately owned cars. And the other major flavor is people will use them as a source of rides. And then they recognize that that itself comes in two flavors. In other words, it would just be a laissez-faire market. That's in the central column where companies just run their robo-fleets, robo-taxis, robo-shuttles in whatever way pleases their shareholders, as we've mostly seen from Lyft and Uber till now, where we had the results that Bruce Shuttle showed us yesterday. And what this central column says is that what this central column says is that it's going to get a lot worse than Bruce Shuttle described if we just let it run on its own. The third column says, well, let's just integrate these systems with our existing transit system. There's a lot of problems with that, but nonetheless, what I'm about to talk about is how do we get from that, how do we get from the first two columns to the third column? So we've defined a system called the Harmonization Management System. It's a software platform that what it essentially does is, I'm just reading it, offers transportation managers the capability to enhance and extend community transit services by partnering with these new mobility partners. Another way to say this is that the software platform sets up a, for the transportation managers, some way to regulate and supply demand, which they can't do effectively now with Lyft and Uber. What the transportation managers are doing is they're seeking sustainability and social justice and access and fair rides and all that sort of thing, whereas the transportation providers have shareholders to take care of. They're seeking growth and profit. But what they do is they deliver trip services. So what would we like to have happen on the upper right, and let's see what's provided on the bottom left. So what we do is we put a system in between that, and what that system does is that takes the performance targets as set by the transportation provider, such as we would like to have 400,000 miles of disability rides, or we want to have 2.2 million transit stop drop-offs, or we want to have certain services in transit deserts and so forth. There's a city and a town in Innisfil, Ontario that has only 30,000 people over a huge area, and they can't put a bus system in because it's just not dense enough for that. And they in fact set performance targets for certain drop-offs in certain places within their city and are paying Uber to do that. So it's an instance of that kind of a system. It's not on our system, I'm just saying that's the idea. In any case, what the transportation providers do is they provide trips, but they need to provide a certain amount of trip data. And we all hear and know that these firms are unwilling to provide trip data. We set up autonomy and, anonymity and aggregation filters so that they don't give away any of their personal information, but they are providing enough information in order to receive the subsidies that are associated with those performance targets. So that's measured. Subsidies and road fees are computed. I put in the word road fees because the same system can do road pricing as well. So you can say, you're welcome to operate in our area with your robo-fleets, put in your 5,000 vehicles, use our roads, run your business, doesn't matter, like do what you want to do, but there's a road fee for that. So you can just give single occupant rides to rich people, that's fine if you want to do that. You need to pay for the privilege of running your business like that. However, if you want to provide all these other services performances that we're looking for, then there's a subsidy for that. The net of it would be potentially a profit equation for those providers. In any case, out of all that comes not only the data for the subsidies and fees, but also comes out a body of advice to the transportation managers that if you were to tune your subsidies in a certain way, then you would have a better performance out of the fleet that you're trying to regulate. They're not owning that fleet, they're just regulating the behavior of that fleet, but with a little bit of indirection so those fleets can still do what they want to do. Depends on whether or not they want to collect those subsidies or pay the road tax. The same thing goes back to the transportation provider with such things as, had you done 15% more drop-offs at the transit station, that would have been worth an extra $120,000 to you last month, for example. we can do those calculations and advise the transportation providers that way. Not like they can't figure it out, but this isn't just for the two main guys. This allows the local taxis and the local shuttles and perhaps the community shuttles for disability rights and so forth, all to engage in this way. So fundamentally, what the harmonization management system is a B2B system in between transportation managers and ride providers. It is not a MaaS system. The users, the people getting into the vehicles to take a ride, don't even know the system is there. It's just like you can take a taxi ride, but you do not know that there's a taxi medallion system. You don't have to understand what's behind the scenes. In a sense, we don't need a taxi medallion system in these future fleets, but this is a way to do that same thing. So what you do is you specify that performance is regulated by the transportation manager. They set and manage the subsidy budget. We help them in that management. We're not setting any performance targets, nor are we setting any subsidies. That's up to the government. And it's open to all ride providers. It simplifies the procurement process, so you don't have to go out, as they did in Innisfil. They procure just services just from one company. They go and put this on a platform, and then all 4 or 5 or 6 companies can reply. Think about the future in which there's a Ford fleet, and a Volvo fleet, and a GM fleet, and an Uber fleet, and a Lyft fleet. How are you going to manage all that? That's the platform. This is the platform for that. So basically, the HMS sits amongst multiple ride providers and allows incentives, or there's also road fees, but it's not listed there, for all these kinds of things. Seniors mobility is one of the ones we're working on now, and transit as so that's the Innisfil example. And WIT manages from multiple cities and towns. So what that does is it removes transit boundaries at the same time, because you can live in one city or town and maybe take the train that's in the next city or town, and you can be subsidized, cross-subsidized by both in a fractional subsidization manager. And we handle all that as well. So that's a system proposed as a system to manage multiple fleets. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, anything that will improve communications in this area is certainly welcome. I left the agenda here. So we have a volunteer to take the place of Joe Sapphire, the venture capitalist from Axial. And so I'm going to introduce Curtis Hodge from Local Motor.
Hi everybody, good morning. My name's Curtis Hodge. Come to you from Local Motors, which is a next generation American mobility company. And what we do is we design, build, and sell vehicles. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview about what we're working on right now, which is a product called Ollie, and the process that we use to develop that product and how we're deploying it into the marketplace. So to begin, this is our CEO, Jay Rogers. He's actually from Princeton. He graduated here in the class of '94 from the Woodrow Wilson School, so kind of a local connection into the ecosystem here. So a little bit about our business. We aren't innovators or manufacturers. We're actually both. So our business is positioned as a vehicle that as a company that designs, builds, and sells vehicles, and we do that in a kind of unique way. So there's kind of 2 pillars within our business. One is a global co-creation community. So it's an online community of over 100,000 members distributed around the world. And then we have a network of local microfactories that are filled with digital tools and about the size of a Walmart that allow us to design, build, and sell vehicles all under one roof and customize those vehicles to the needs of a local community. And we've done other work with different types of organizations, with General Electric, with Airbus, for drones and appliances, but in our core business, we started with a vehicle because it's a highly complex system, and we wanted to change the world of vehicle innovations. So a little bit about co-creation. Has anybody heard of that idea before? A few people? See one in the audience that I know well.
Is that the same as crowdsourcing, in a sense?
It's related to crowdsourcing. So what we do in the co-creation process is we'll put out a challenge to an organization or group, and we'll say we're looking to design a new system or vehicle. Do you have any ideas? And people from all around the world respond. And these aren't necessarily trained engineers. These can be all the people that you see listed here: teachers, lawyers, farmers, people that are actually end users of the vehicle systems. So we'll put out these challenges to the world and get responses back and feedback from those end users or from the people who have ideas or insight into the product set. We then take those ideas within our team and work with those members in the community to build the ideas in a small factory called a microfactory. So this is the microfactory that I work in Knoxville, Tennessee. We have locations in Phoenix, Knoxville, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco. Knoxville is focused mostly on large-scale direct digital manufacturing or 3D printing. So we work with a variety of new generation tools, things like large-scale 3D printers, large-scale mills, and different technologies that are connected into the internet. And this is a really powerful innovation because we can take those ideas that are generated by this distributed cloud in a digital format in CAD or whatever software they're using and transform those ideas directly into components on our large-scale printing and milling technology. So what you see here on the left side of the picture is the top of one of our Ollie vehicles. It's currently in prototype. So that printer is about the size of a 2-car garage. So it's a total step change in the size of 3D printing, uses advanced composites in the printing process. So things like carbon fiber are inserted into different thermoplastics. We also have a subtractive process, as you can see there on the Stratty body, which is a 3D printed car that we made, being milled out to emplace headlights in that particular image. So these are a few things we've done in the past. Stratty, which was the world's first 3D printed car, was designed to go fast, had about 40 components in total, sub-assembled, and then inserted onto this chassis. And we were able to bring that product to market in just a couple months, and it was a very simple product to assemble. And the goal was part reduction and lightweighting. The Swim, which was a highway speed 3D printed vehicle, which was an experimental prototype that we made, also the result of a co-creation challenge online. This vehicle was designed to be modular and recyclable. The Zelator, a drone that we did with Airbus Group. So rapidly doing a global co-creation challenge, getting about 425 entries submitted for different drone designs from people around the world. This winning design was actually from a fellow in Russia who designed the vehicle there, and then built that drone from the concept image that you see here into a flying prototype in about 2.5 months. And we've also done work with the military before, with DARPA and other organizations around military vehicles and logistics. So really what we're working on in this space, though, is a vehicle called Ollie. It's a self-driving shuttle. Ollie was the result of a challenge called Urban Mobility 2030. And we went out to the world and said, we want you to imagine what the future of mobility looks like in Berlin in the year 2030. And from that, we got about 150 responses, things ranging from bike sharing systems through to a tree that held bicycles through to Ollie, which was the community design that was chosen in the winning design. You can see the winner down there, Edgar Sarmento. Edgar is actually from Colombia. So he was a design student in Milan, Italy, a Colombian citizen, and he answered this challenge for Berlin. So it's a real global community play in this engineering and design process. We then engineered the vehicle in-house and rapidly worked to build a prototype vehicle, which we launched in 2016 in our National Harbor, Washington, D.C. location. We're now in the process of deploying these vehicles into early commercial pilot programs around the U.S. So this is Edgar standing in front of the vehicle. He actually got to meet Ollie about 6 months after he designed it on paper. And he stayed involved in that design process throughout, and we're still close to him and the other community members that work to design our vehicles. So it was pretty cool to meet him and actually see how excited he was when he saw his idea go from a paper to a real vehicle in a very rapid process. This was his original design. And that design morphed into the Ollie that you see here. So as I mentioned, 12-passenger self-driving shuttle, fixed route and dynamic response services. We have cognitive HMI built on board, so you can speak to the vehicle like you could talk to an Amazon Alexa or Siri. That's still in prototype phase, but we're working really to imagine what this user and rider experience is in this new generation of vehicles, and currently deploying. So as I mentioned, deploying into the marketplace. These are our real applications for 2018. It's mostly campus-based applications in the US market currently, with some limited public road deployments in other territories, not US. But as you can see here, it's kind of the main suspects that you'd imagine: federal campuses, airports, hospitals, amusement parks, community centers, downtowns of cities. And our goal really is to provide that campus transport, and then eventually transition into providing first and last mile services in urban cores to public transit, or offering on-demand mobility within an automated mobility district in a city. So again, what markets are we targeting currently with Ollie? So mobility in large private areas, car-free zones in cities, and then early experimentation as a feeder for mass transit. And how are we deploying the vehicles with our customers? So in terms of the market response and what we've seen from people that are interested in this type of product, we've noticed that people are looking for three things, and I'll end on this slide. They're really interested in doing demonstrations, understanding how the product works in their city. They're interested in using the vehicle as a platform for development of different technologies. And finally, they're interested in deploying the vehicle into services in a pilot program. So getting riders on board and experimenting with the deployment of these vehicles. So that's a little bit about Local Motors and Ollie. Thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to the conversation.